Hello, everyone. Hello, Jennifer.
Hey, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. You guys might be surprised. I am not your normal host for the Life and Listings podcast, but I'm very excited to be interviewing our special guest today, who is your normal host. Again, welcome to your own podcast. How does it feel to be a guest today?
I feel so weird. I'm like, wait a second. I'm just going to sit back and relax today.
Yes, you are. You're going to be in the hot seat answering all the questions.
So funny.
But yeah, I'm really excited about this. I think it's a great opportunity for people to get to know a little bit more about you and why you are such an expert in the field that you are in, why so many brokerages are knocking at your door. Help. So let's start there. Let's talk a little bit about your journey. A lot of us know you started out as an agent. So how did you go from agent to CEO of this super top ops and marketing management company for agents?
Yeah. I mean, I have been, at this point, I think I've been a licensed agent for 15 years. I'm going to totally date myself, but I got my license when I was 20. And I started out as an unpaid intern 15 years ago. I literally started as an unpaid intern. I was an agent. I got a job working actually at a flooring store. Super random, but it's where I first initially saw my passion for operations, where I was able just to jump in this new business, figure it out, getting it running really well, and just was like, wow, that was really fun, right? I changed these people's business. I was continuing to do real estate on the side, and I moved up to LA and I started working for a broker owner, but he also owned multiple businesses. So he also owned an aircraft engine facility. Same thing. I jumped in, learned it's super random. My family's actually in the aviation industry, so it's a little less random than it's sounds, but I'm third generation aviation person. But I jumped right in and really just figured out that was where my passion lied. I really liked selling real estate. I liked the real estate industry. I was really good at just figuring things out. It didn't matter if it was real estate. I jumped into the aircraft engine facility and figured out how to systematize getting all of their FAA audits and stuff. And from there, I have been in operations ever since. And I started Stat Solutions about 7 years ago, where we started running the operations of real estate brokerages and teams nationwide. And here we are.
Amazing. That's amazing. Aviation to agent. Wait, it's flooring store.
Yeah.
Agent to CEO. That's amazing. Listen, anything is possible.
Yep.
So now you've had Stat Solutions for how long now?
7 years. Yeah.
11 years. Man, that's amazing. So in all that time, I know as a part of the Stats member, we've, worked with people all over the country and even in Canada, which is cool. What do you see are the most common pitfalls, with teams and brokerages? What do you see is kind of everybody's missing piece?
I think kind of the missing piece, it's not even just with brokers, right? I came across the same thing when I started Stats. It's that first piece of wow, I'm getting really busy, and what is my next step to growth? And it's the hiring piece. It's the adding to the team. It's hiring out. And I tend to see quite often that people just initially think the next, I don't know if it's TV or where we're at in the world, but they're you need to hire an assistant. First thing you need to do, you hire an assistant. And that gets overwhelming for most because 1, a full-time assistant is very expensive. 2, it can be really time consuming to train this person. And so I think kind of where I see it is that there's a disconnect. It's who should your first hire be? And are you actually ready to hire? I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that are you prepared in a whole bunch of different ways? Are you prepared to bring a person onto your growing team?
Yeah. What do you think are if you were to give people a checklist or maybe some signs, some symptoms, we'll call it, that they're really ready to hire and make that change, that add-on successful? What would you say are those kind of key factors you're looking for?
When we're bringing on some of our new clients, I'm helping them back into it. Okay. And a lot of it starts with what they're going to delegate to us, right?
Yeah.
But we also help them hire within their team. So I might start by being okay, what are you ready to delegate? let's look at your workload. And I mean, you've heard me say this before, and maybe some of our listeners have too. I have that yellow workbook exercise where I just tell them, like, take a notebook, set it next to your desk. Every day you come in, you're writing out things that you think you can delegate. And it doesn't have to be one specific person in mind. It's like, today I'm working on invoicing. That's something I could easily delegate out. Tomorrow I'm working on sending out contracts. Could I delegate that out? And you're writing it all down. And then you're looking at, okay, who's that first person I can delegate something to? And I usually like to say your first person shouldn't be a full-time employee. It shouldn't have to be. You can start with sending stuff to a bookkeeper, right? So you think about all these little things you can delegate. So to kind of go back to your question, like, how do you know when you're ready? Do you have a list of things that you're ready to delegate to someone, even with very, very brief instructions? Do you have an idea? Because you don't want to hire someone to be like, what am I going to give you today? And then, number 2 is, do you have the budget for it? So regardless of who you're going to hire, do you have the budget for a bookkeeper? Do you have a budget for an assistant? Do you have a budget for a transaction coordinator? And can you keep them on for a pretty decent amount of time? Are you budgeting that for the next year? Or can you only pay them for the next 2 weeks? I mean, I would say, like, those are some key indicators that I would say you might be ready if you kind of know what their job description is going to look like and you know that you can afford them long term.
Cool. Okay. So let's say I'm looking at my budget. I got my yellow pad done, my exercise done, which, by the way, is super cool. So I've got that done. I've got the budget. So what would you suggest we do now?
Yeah.
How do you go about finding those people or figuring out?
Yeah. I mean, so you also have to, like, kind of backtrack into it. Like, okay, if it's just something as simple, I'm going to say simple, but like bookkeeping is not simple. But if it's just something as simple as hiring a bookkeeper, that is a proven professional that does this for other clientele on a monthly basis, right? That's a much easier thing to get started and off your plate because there's not going to be any training involved. It's going to be like, add me to QuickBooks, get me receipts every month. This is what I charge. It's a flat fee. Great. Get that off of your plate first. Get those small little things that you can get to, like, a contractor off your plate first. And then I would say, like, things like a transaction coordinator, listing coordinator, same thing. Those are things that you can get off of your plate really, really quickly. You can hire, send that out. That's as simple as posting a job ad or getting a recommendation from somebody else, right? Do you have a TC that you really like? Us in real estate, you're probably already on those emails with a TC from someone else that you can reach out to and say, hey, I'm ready to hire. I definitely, recommend trying to get a recommendation from someone else first before you're out there with contractors, so you at least know that they're proven. If you're going the full-time employee route, the first thing I want you to do is I want to make sure that you do have some sort of training started, meaning these are the tasks they're going to work on every day. And it does not need to be perfect. You at least start on some sort of training or SOPs for them. Because imagine you're a new assistant and you're very excited to start on your first day. And you come in and you show up to work at 8 a.m. and there's no email address for you. And there's no paperwork ready for you. And you have no idea what you're doing. It doesn't feel very good, right? Like, that's not a great way to start. So make sure you have something. And I'm going to really kind of hone in on that. It doesn't have to be perfect because that person can help you define those SOPs as you start going. You can say, this is my basics, but can you help me make them better in the future? Because I always say when you're hiring, I want you to be ready for that person to move on to a different role. And that person that you hired as assistant, I'm not saying that prepare for them to leave you, but prepare for them to move up the ladder, right? Because that's always the goal. It's like you want those people to be able to do more or take on more, delegate out the other stuff eventually. So I like to say, like, make them create some sort of SOP. And then this is the most important one. Clarissa and I were talking about this earlier. Make sure that you are ready. Do you have the bandwidth for this extra person to be a part of your team? Do you have the bandwidth to meet with them, to communicate, to spend some time training, and then go into the job posting?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us do the first, right? You're like, I'm just going to go post on Indeed today and for an assistant, and you're not ready to bring that person onto your team.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't feel good. And we do see that at SETS too, where, a client will hire us and they didn't have the bandwidth to even give us experienced professionals. And though it doesn't go the way that everybody wants it to go, because you still need to take that little bit of that time investment with that person to get more off of your plate. So, and then you're ready for the job posting, which everyone thinks that's the very first part, but then you're ready to go. We use WiseHire. So we love posting our job ads on WiseHire. And then you're ready to kind of start talking about bringing someone on.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really wise too, because it is true. We tend to think, I need somebody. Let me put the call out.
Yeah.
All of these amazing people, or sometimes, maybe not the best fits.
Mm-hmm.
And my inbox is flooded now, and I really don't know what to do with this chaotic mess. And then I just go radio silence all these people.
Yeah.
And that can I feel like one of the things that we see here at Stats is that, as I'm the marketing lead at Stats, and one of the things I see is, momentum is a big thing. Like being able to make these transitions and these changes and keeping that momentum going, I think is really, really important. What would you say for someone who's, okay, we're tracking with you. We're doing all the things. We're listening to this podcast. We're checking off all the things you're talking about. And I've got my first hire, let's say. So what would you suggest? What are the things I could do? I mean, you mentioned training before. Are there other things that I could put in place to, one, help me know, help me keep this person around for more than 2 weeks? But also, how do I gauge if this person's working out or not?
I mean, I think setting like really clear expectations, right? And it's going to depend on the role. There's certain jobs that there's reporting that you can pull, right? There's probably reports or tracking you can do. With certain roles, that's not going to be the same. There isn't going to be like a numerical value or certain things like tracking metrics. But I generally like to say, like, one of the things I learned really early on, because this was a mistake I made first hiring. I did my first hire as complete sheer necessity. I started Stat Solutions. It was growing like crazy. I had moved to a new state. I had no friends and family. I had a 1-year-old and I was pregnant with our second. Like, I needed help, and I needed help quickly. So I hired really, really fast. And that was fine. I really hired an amazing person. She brought up a lot of really great ideas that, happened early on in Stats, but I didn't know how to be a manager yet. Like, I truly don't feel like I knew how to be a owner. And so I didn't realize how certain actions that I did would make my new hire feel. So something like as simple as my baby would have a cold. And so I would cancel our meeting, and it would happen every once in a while. And little did I know it was affecting her, right? Because it was just me, and it was just her and I at Stats at that point. And so the consistency she needed from me as her boss and owner, she wasn't getting. Right? She wasn't getting what she needed out of me because I was being inconsistent with her, because I thought I needed to be the most consistent with clients and my kids and then her. And where I really kind of felt like I failed was really, truly, I should have given more. My staff should have almost been number one because they were helping me do all of the other things. So I would say, like, okay, you're ready to hire. You've hired someone. You've got your training. Make sure that you're setting consistent meetings with that person, and you're holding each other accountable. It's not all about you as an owner holding your employee accountable. You need to hold your own self accountable for what you need to be doing as a boss, an employer, a manager, whatever you want to call yourself. Because I think that's where it kind of gets hung up and people end up leaving, because you're not setting these really great check-in points and you're not holding each other accountable. And I think us as bosses are not holding ourselves accountable enough for what our staff needs.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, because you're just like, if you're a broker owner or you're a team lead and you're building your team, your passion to create the culture there, right, is a huge piece of what makes that team, that brokerage successful. And I think you're good point that it's the same way when you're hiring somebody. Like, you want someone who, yes, is a really good bookkeeper, or yes, a really good BA, but you do want someone also who can fit into that team culture. And I do think it actually starts with you as the hirer, as the employer, whatever you want to call yourself, the manager. That culture and that right fit, that temperature, so to speak, really does start with you. And I do think, like, it's easy to know when you're really gelling, you're really vibing, and that momentum is there, right? And I think it's also easy to tell when it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know we've got a couple minutes left, but I think it would be an interesting take. So let's talk a little bit more about that. What if someone doesn't feel like a good fit? How do you suggest going about figuring that out and then having maybe that tough conversation?
I'm kind of weird in the fact that when I feel like I've brought someone on, and mind you, we bring a lot of people on, right? Like not only within staffs, but we help all of our clients hire. We help them bring on agents and admins and TCs and all sorts of things. So our level of hiring is much higher than most people. So we see this a lot. But I generally like to take it as, if something isn't working out, I always like to look at it as my fault first. What did I do? Did I not set up the training properly? Did I not set the right expectations? Have I not been communicating properly? I always look at it as my fault first. So let's go back to what their onboarding looked like, what their training looked like, and let's address their questions, their concerns, or maybe their poor performance.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we've addressed that. I've usually addressed like my template or my training. Let's have them go back through it. Let's make sure we have really clear communication. Let them run with it again. If that continues to happen, then we'll have to start thinking about letting that person go. But I always like to look at it first of like, I mean, Clarissa, I know you've seen this a million times when we're working through like client onboarding and stuff like that. This question's coming up. I want to make sure it's addressed for future clients, right? So I look at it the same with employees. I want to make sure I'm giving the benefit of the doubt first before I'm instantly like, you're fired. Right. But then I'm going, okay, because I'm a softie at heart. And so more often than not, I let it play out a little longer than it probably should. But I want to give them the benefit of the doubt first and then let them go. So if it's not feeling like a good fit, whether this is an agent or a staff, you need to address it immediately. And then you need to try and fix it. If it's fixable, right? There's things that like are not fixable, like obviously if they're doing something crazy, and then you need to let them go, right? And then I always recommend it when you are hiring people, you need to have a very clear exit plan. So if you're sharing passwords or bank accounts or anything like that, anytime you're getting ready to let someone go, you do need to make sure there's a really clear exit plan. I recommend having that before you even bring someone on. So, we have like secure places to keep passwords, all that stuff. So if someone does leave, I can just remove them from that and they lose access. But that would kind of be my thing if it's not working out.
Yeah, that's great. Those are fantastic tips. Yeah, I love this conversation. This is let me throw just a wild card rogue question at you.
Oh my God.
Okay, you were not prepared for this one. So if you weren't doing what you're doing now in another life, let's say, what would you love to be doing?
Okay, so it's funny. I'm not really sure if there's like some other big dream. I always wanted to be a veterinarian, but I would end up with like way more animals than we even have right now and like probably be sad most of the time because like I don't think I could handle that. But when we moved to Colorado, like my full intention was to stay home with my kids and realized very quickly I really like business. So I really think like I would probably be doing some other business. I don't know what it would be. I've been like an entrepreneur at heart since I was like 5. I legit scrubbed neighbors' driveways for money when I was 5. I sold like lemonade. I sold flowers, like instantly like started pet sitting. You name it, like odd job. I have done it since I was 5 years old. So I would think there would probably be another business if I didn't have stats.
That's amazing. Goats, milk, some company with all.
I tried. I literally almost did that. And then some lady was like, do you realize how many hours you'd have to be outside milking the goats? So instead, my goats just like hang out in the backyard.
Yeah.
And just chill.
Well, thanks for being a special guest on your own podcast, Jennifer. We appreciate all you guys listening to Life and Listings podcast. I am your temporary host, Clarissa McNeil, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.